Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Congressional leaders standing with the Jewish people against rising anti-Semitism. They lit a menorah to commemorate Hanukkah at the U.S. Capitol yesterday.
Well, negotiations to free the captives in Gaza are ongoing. Hostage families are urging Israel's leaders against any deal that doesn't release all of them at once. Paul Strand reports.
Some sources say a deal to free the hostages in Gaza is closer than ever and could be reached within a month. But others believe talk of an imminent deal is exaggerated. The main sticking point? Hamas fears that if it releases the hostages before the war is permanently ended, Israel will then wipe out the terror group. Hamas reportedly proposes releasing a few hostages at a time as long as the ceasefire keeps getting extended. The notion of a deal that doesn't free all the hostages at once infuriates former captives and family members of those who remain in Gaza.
Bring the hostage home. No wars, no promise. Only action. Bring them back. All of them.
I know exactly what the hostages are going through. I saw it. I experienced it. A partial deal will be a stain on the heart of our society for generations.
On the Syrian front, Israel continues to take action to secure its borders. During a visit to Mount Hermon, Israel's prime minister declared IDF troops will stay in this buffer zone on the Syrian side of the strategic Golan Heights to guarantee the recent jihadist takeover of Syria doesn't spill over into the Jewish nation.
It's important for Israel's security, which has only been reinforced in recent years, and especially in recent weeks, with the dramatic events taking place here below us in Syria. We will determine the best arrangement that will ensure our security.
Israel's deputy foreign minister is explaining why Israeli jets have struck well over 300 Syrian military targets since rebels took over.
To make sure that terrorist organizations don't have access to highly sophisticated weapons, ballistic missiles, including chemical weapons as well.
In the U.S., leaders of Congress showed solidarity with the Jewish people Tuesday by lighting a menorah to commemorate Hanukkah. The Jewish holiday commemorates the miracle of God keeping a flame lit many days when there was only enough oil for a few hours. In a year of rising anti-Semitism, the flame gives hope.
We all know that 2024 was a very difficult year for Jewish Americans.
And amid a rise in anti-Semitic attacks at home and abroad, we need to keep the flame of hope burning brighter, greater, more than ever.
We believe the light of truth always overcomes the darkness of terror.
We will continue to reiterate with moral clarity that anti-Semitism in any way, shape, or form is unacceptable, unconscionable, and un-American.
The leaders lit the flame with Rabbi Levi Shem Tov, affectionately known as the Rabbi of Capitol Hill. Paul Strand, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, now more than ever, we need to stand with the Jewish people, and we need to see this through to victory. We're on the verge of an incredible breakthrough in the Middle East. At the same time, it's also an opportunity for extremists to come into any kind of power vacuum. So we need to be very wary of developments in Syria. That group that is emerging to lead that country is an offshoot of ISIS. And they have no qualms in saying their goal is Jerusalem. They want to take over Jerusalem. And right here in America, we need to be aware of rising anti-Semitism. George Mason University, right here in Virginia, suspended students who are involved in Justice for Palestine. And what they found in their rooms were weapons. These things are absolutely incredible, that students would be advocating for the destruction of the Jewish state and have weapons associated with that. We need to absolutely take a stand, not on our watch. You don't get to do that in Israel, and you certainly don't get to do it right here in the United States. In other news, police in Wisconsin are still searching for a motive in the deadly shooting at a Christian school. And when you look at the social media posts, here's a 15-year-old girl. What in the world is she involved in that she would have this kind of hatred running through her mind? John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. It's unthinkable. Well, the suspect in the deadly shooting at Abundant Life Christian School is a 15-year-old girl who apparently took her own life. As police continue their investigation, the community is coming together. Residents held a vigil last night to honor those lost in the tragedy. CBN Charlene Aaron reports.
The community of Madison is wrestling with the anguish of Monday's school shooting. Some are calling for families, children, and staff to form deeper connections. Worship filled the air as grieving residents gathered at the state capitol Tuesday night to mourn and to pray for those affected by the shooting.
I'm here because because this is such a huge loss for our community, and it's just happening too often.
Pain and sorrow bringing residents together.
What I plead to you tonight is that we find a new way, a deeper way, a more meaningful way to connect with our community. Children to children, children to staff, families to families. We need to connect like we are tonight, each and every day.
For 3 years, this man has been bringing crosses to communities that suffer gun violence in schools.
God spoke to me 3 years ago and told me to build a cross, and I didn't know why. And he revealed to me we had a school shooting in Oxford, Michigan, almost exactly 3 years ago at a high school, and I took the cross to the vigil there. And after that vigil, I knew that the cross wasn't just for Michigan; it was for everyone across the country that needs to feel the message of healing and hope and love for one another.
This student recalling the horror of what happened.
Most of us were crying. We went to the corner. We just hunkered down there. Our teacher, she was talking to us very quietly, of course, like whispering. It felt like we were there like forever.
Police are trying to find out what drove 15-year-old Natalie Rupnow to bring a gun to the private Christian school and open fire during study hall, killing a teacher and fellow student. 6 others were injured, including 2 who have life-threatening injuries. Authorities searching the shooter's home for a motive, including possible bullying.
It appears that the motive was a combination of factors. Again, we cannot share that information at this time because we do not want to jeopardize the investigation.
A report from the Washington Post cites a troubled home life, with court records showing the parents married and divorced several times and that the girl had been in therapy. Her parents are said to be cooperating with the investigation. Meanwhile, police are also going through online accounts and working to verify whether a so-called manifesto belongs to the shooter. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thank you, Charlene. Well, here in Washington, congressional leaders reached a deal to keep the government open for 3 more months. The stopgap spending bill will keep the lights on through March 14th, kicking the problem past the holidays and past President Trump's inauguration. Congress has 72 hours to review the bill, meaning the final vote could go right up to the Friday deadline. The temporary measure includes more than $100 billion in aid for states affected by Hurricanes Helene and Milton, as well as other natural disasters. Well, members of Congress want Americans to give more in donations. The Bipartisan Charitable Act could mean a larger deduction for taxpayers who give to places of worship and nonprofit groups. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London spoke with the bill's co-sponsor on the impact of the legislation.
For Senator Langford, getting this act passed through Congress soon is personal. He worked in nonprofits for close to 20 years, seeing firsthand just how much charities rely on our donations and time. Langford admits, however, the spirit of giving has dwindled for many Americans in today's economy.
We want to create an environment where we tell people that the safety net of the world is not the federal government. It's the families first, our churches and nonprofits.
In order to get people to believe that message, Langford's bill aims to give more to those who give back, especially to worship centers, charities, and other nonprofits of choice.
I'm very proud of how many Americans actually give to nonprofits, but we want people to actually be able to give a little bit more. Right now, the average American gives about 1.7% of their income to a nonprofit. 1.7%. That's not a lot.
And while he would like to see that number increase, Langford knows certain changes must come first. The cap on federal charitable deductions for those who don't itemize would be raised to around $4,600 per individual, up from the previous cap of $300. Still, he stresses the importance of itemizing for maximum benefit.
Only that 9% of the country that actually itemize. We're trying to create an incentive for people that don't itemize on their taxes.
An American Bible Society study shows the number of Americans donating to charity has dropped almost 10% from last year. Its findings also reveal that American households with the lowest income levels actually give the most to a church or charity, with their donations exceeding 10% of their income.
Imagine for a moment if you're a lower middle class donor with that spirit of generosity, but if you don't have the financial wherewithal, and all of a sudden you have an incentive.
Sam Rodriguez is a senior pastor of New Season Church in California. He believes that if this bill becomes law, it would lighten the load for members in his congregation, eventually creating a sense of unity beyond the church doors.
If you have a tithing policy or a tithing and offerings policy, whatever it may be, it will definitely increase it, enabling churches to become even more transformative as it pertains to impacting the communities around them.
Langford believes a strong misconception about charitable giving is that larger donations matter most.
Nonprofits are very dependent on 1,000 small dollar donors, because those small dollar donors not only will give them $20 to be able to help, but they also become a volunteer base.
Teaming with Senate Democrat Chris Coons, Langford says hundreds of organizations, including the YMCA, Goodwill, and the American Heart Association, are all supporting the effort. Introduced last year, the Charitable Act received renewed support this month. It came in the form of a letter from the Charitable Giving Coalition, signed by 470 organizations from all 50 states, urging Congress to pass the bill. While Langford tells CBN News he doesn't expect a vote before the new year, he is pushing to get enough bipartisan support in the next Congress to get the act passed. Michelle London, CBN News, Washington.
An act that is certainly gaining a lot of support. Gordon?
Well, it should, because, you know, where's the heart of relief in America? It's always in the local community. And if you can encourage local organizations, and especially churches, to reach out with hands of love and compassion, churches can do things our government can't do. And it's unfortunate that we as Americans have started to look to the federal government for relief for whatever the social ill, the current one in the headlines, and you know, what can the government do? The question ought to be, what can we do together? And how can we do that in our neighborhood, and in our cities, and in our states? And how can we be transformative right where we are? If you encourage that and you encourage that community, that's the backbone of America, and it has been since our founding. De Tocqueville famously wrote about it. The reason America is great is because America is good. And then he goes into detail of that goodness, and you find it in the churches.